So I came up with this thing last night called the protective player theory. The protective player theory, the idea that we're going into this preseason game, especially this Hall of Fame game, which is a practice of a preseason game. There are certain guys that are not going to see this field, and they are a part of that conglomerate of protected players. We weren't going to see Randy Gregory right there. We weren't going to see, guys like, Diggs. We weren't going to see Zeke last night. If Dak was healthy, we weren't going to see him neither. Lamb didn't go out there, and I think that's very telling, just to get an idea of who this staff considers so important that they can't even play in the Hall of Fame game. Why I think that's important? For one, I think that is a thing to where we're protecting players that are super important to what we're doing. And if we have depth at that position, we can run guys out there. You see what I mean? So I'm just looking up here and, we wasn't going to see Randy, nothing like that. We wasn't going to see Diggs, none of those guys, right? But the very first play from scrimmage, all the linebackers were out there, and I thought that was interesting, right? That was the only level of the defense that didn't have any alterations. When we look at D-line, like Carlos Watkins ran out first, and Dorrance ran out there first, simply because D-Law and Randy weren't going to be there first, right? Brent Urban playing D-end on his first reps out there were interesting. I don't think D-end is going to be a home for him, but I just think he was there because we weren't going to play our D-ends. What else was altered at cornerback? Diggs wasn't out there. The first two cornerbacks out there were Bossman and Bossman Fat and Anthony Brown or whatnot, right? So that's an alteration. Even at the safety spots, right? We didn't see Donovan, so that's interesting that they consider Donovan a guy that's untouchable or a guy that's under the protective player plan. I think that's dope for Donovan because we were kind of going into this thing thinking, maybe they just like Curse. Curse sure is playing a lot. I think they value Donovan as a first team strong safety. That's good news for everybody. But I really want to focus on this linebacker position because they ran Jalen Smith out there, It's interesting. Like they ran Jalen, Van Der Esch, and Micah Parsons out there, so we know that Van Der Esch isn't a guy that they consider super top tier. I mean, he's still on his rookie deal. He didn't get his 5th year option, so we can imagine that they don't mind playing Van Der Esch as much as they can. But Jalen's out there. Jalen got a little bit of money behind him. Jalen is, if you look at the makeup of our linebacker core, he's one of the only, and I air quote the shit out this, but Mike's out there, he's one of the only ones that does it. Everybody else is just kind of will guys, like pass rush guys, right? So in my mind, why is Jalen being put in danger in that way if he's the only Mike linebacker that I'm air quoting the shit out this? Why are we putting Jalen in danger if he's the only Mike linebacker and he's getting paid money and he's somebody that's a leader of this team and somebody that's going to be important to this system moving forward in the season? Let me get my glasses and my war card back ready, goddammit. Because if Jalen Smith so much as breaks a fingernail and has to miss 1 week, Parsons ain't giving that spot back. That's real talk. That ain't me hoping for some Jalen Smith injury. Nobody wants Jalen Smith to get hurt. And even I'm on the team of, why are we trying to cut Jalen Smith, right? There are Cowboy fans that are trying to push him all the way off the bridge. I think we need everybody. If Micah was starting and Jalen was on the bench and Micah gets hurt, then you would rather Jalen Smith come in than some miscellaneous street dude. You see what I mean? So I find value in Jalen being on this team to some capacity, but you know how it is when these rookies are impressive, but seniority is also at play. The only reason Anthony Brown is on the field in the first place, which comes into one of my second takeaways here. Anthony Brown's kind of out there because of seniority, and I feel like the first couple plays were they were angled directly at him, like they were throwing at Anthony Brown, they were trying Anthony Brown, bro. Like, hold on, bro. They didn't even look at Boss Man Fat, bro. It's like he wasn't. It's like I feel like they may have tried him once with Claypool, right? Like they may have tried Kelvin one time with Chase and that didn't go well, and for the rest of the game they just didn't even try. I mean, he was out there for a while. He was out there like the first half and bits of the third quarter also, man. So like that's a positive sign for Kelvin Joseph, right? So, we were getting the camp reports that Nashawn was probably going to be a little better than him, and that's cool. But I always tell people to wait it out a little bit. There's always this buffer period that guys, especially rookies, they have to take to adjust to camp. Then they have to adjust to the game. Then they're going to be ready to do whatever it is that they're going to do. Most cornerbacks, most rookies in general, but cornerbacks really have to go through that. Nashawn had that buffer period where he had to get his body in order, right? He had the OTAs and all that stuff, right? Boss man, he had the injury, then he had the COVID, so then he had to come out and get his situation. But Boss man played a cold ass game of catch up to Nashawn Wright in this offseason. Nashawn is a will guy. He's there's skill and then there's will. Nashawn is fearless. Nashawn is aggressive. He's angry. He has the swagger, and he's gonna look like a really good corner until some stuff like last night kind of happened to him. But then Kelvin naturally gets it. Kelvin is naturally just one of those dudes. He's naturally the athleticism. He naturally has the athleticism that you want in those corners, bro. And it ain't like that they're too far apart. Like Kelvin's a second round pick, Nashawn's a third round pick. So in my mind, whichever one of those dudes play, draft capital won't play a role in politics. In my mind, that's the case. But I'm gonna see if I can find some way to really grind down and see what Kelvin did last night. But in terms of just day one impressions, just off the rip, just game one, they were trying Nashawn a lot more, and they refused to throw the ball at Kelvin Joseph. So that's a good preliminary sign there. Good preliminary sign there. If we could just keep it on cornerbacks for a little bit, if you take it to the second half, they started picking on Reggie Robinson, and we all talk about Reggie Robinson as a guy that's going to be around. Let me get my cheat sheet that I stole from camp. That I stole from the media section in camp. There's a portion here that has all of the DBs on it. The DBs are right there. You can screenshot that if you want to. That's up to y'all. We come in rooting for Reggie Robinson, or we even come in almost putting on our cape for him, in a way that we're saying, hey man, let's give Reggie Robinson a chance. They moved him from corner to safety, back to corner. They're not giving him a shot. I feel that, but if you think about the cornerbacks that's on this team, you think about what Reggie did last night. Reggie got 4 games to kind of figure this out, or it might get bad for him. And I think Reggie played too much last year to be considered a practice squad guy, which also lets you know how much we're going to improve as a defense. Guys that played last year probably won't even make the team or see the field this year. That's how I know it's just going to be so much improvement from the rooter to the tutor in terms of this defense here. But let me just read off some of these cornerbacks. Kelvin Joseph, Stephen Parker probably won't be here. Jordan Lewis, who I think's dealing with some injuries or whatever. Trey Diggs. Then you got Anthony Brown, Maurice Candidate, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. Burton probably not going to be here. Israel probably going to be safety for the most part. Then there's Nashawn and there's Reggie Robinson. That's a lot of corners, bro. I don't think we're going to hold 7 corners because, we may hold 10 DBs in general, but one of those DBs is going to be kicking game guys, right? Like CJ Goodwin. Then the other DBs are going to be safety dudes. So that's like Donovan. That's probably KZ. We ain't even mentioned Malik Hooker yet. We ain't even mentioned Malik Hooker yet. So just more guys that we got to add to that formula. It just looks a little worse for Reggie Robinson in that way. So I'm not writing him off just yet. I'm not writing him off just yet because he has time, right? There could be a situation where Israel is a 5th round pick. Israel's a 6th round pick. So actually my little cheat sheet will tell me if I just go find Israel Mukwamu, it'll tell me exactly what round he was taken in. But we think about guys like Israel, right? Israel 6th round pick. So we think about guys like Israel or whatever, right? He's a 6th round pick, so he might not make the team anyway. But Reggie's not competing with the guys that are going to make the team. There's this group of guys that we feel like are going to make the team, and they're fighting for a depth chart spot. Reggie fighting for his life. So Reggie need to, work on, kick return. He need to work on being a gunner somewhere, kick off, because it's him and Israel. And Israel may have a little bit of freedom because he's in the safety side of it. And there's a lot more cornerback competition than safety. So Brother Reggie gonna be fighting for his life, so these next 5 games we need to keep eyes on that. Maurice Candidate at nickel is really jumping off the film, and that may be more problematic for Anthony Brown. Should I work all that? Nah, no need to work all that. Yeah, man, like, yeah, we're gonna work all that shit. Yeah, man, Anthony Brown might not be here. Yeah, man, Anthony Brown might not be here, bro. And, you know, it's not because, you know, the typical we're trying to get rid of Anthony Brown, because I keep the same energy with Anthony Brown that I have with Jalen Smith, that I would rather have a guy than not have a guy. But, you know, this may come down to a money situation. If Anthony Brown is playing about the same as a Reggie Robinson is, I'm not saying that's the case. Brown could be better than Robinson. You know, let me watch the film, come back and figure this out. Brown could be better than him, but, you know, Robinson is the younger, cheaper, longer guy. And Robinson has a sponsor in Mike McCarthy. Brown just kind of been here, and he's making money that can be wiped off the books at an instant. Jordan Lewis is another one of those guys. Not that I want either of those guys off this team. I'm just talking about what situation can make a guy not be on this team anymore, and that's something that we got to think about. That's something that we got to think about when we're putting this roster together. But Maurice Candidate jumped off the field a few times. He there's this one play the Steelers were throwing a bubble to the left, and Candidate kind of jumped and reached out, almost batted it down from his nickel spot, just reading it or whatever. Then he made plays in the back end. Then he made plays tackling in the run game or whatever. Candidate is really fighting for his spot, and he's been the best. He's been one of the best DBs in training camp. He's gotten all the interceptions. He might be the best. You know, let me not sugarcoat that. He might be the our one of our better DBs. You know, Donovan had a pretty good camp. Diggs having a good camp. Besides the highlights of CD doing CD things to him, you know, but that's gonna happen. Candidate's probably having one of the better camps of all the DBs. We mentioned Brent Urban at defensive end. I don't think he's going to be there for the most part. I think he was only there because we're not playing Randy and D-Law today, or we didn't play Randy and D-Law today. But the fact that Urban is still playing defensive end, it just confirms what we saw on film, on his Bears film. You know, some of my cohorts or whatever, my colleagues, my YouTube guys, you know, we watched the film on Urban, and I was saying, you know, man, he can play 5, he can play some 3, some 1, he can play anywhere on the D line, and he really can. In the first play out there, he's right there. Now, when I was at training camp, when I was at Oxnard, he was always working with the 1s and the 3s, mostly with the noses, but he kind of navigated inside for the most part. But the fact that he can play defensive end, that just gives us some good vibes there. We saving the best for last, y'all. Don't worry about it. We might be the best. We might have the best wide receiver core in the league from top to bottom. Not just like starters and not just like depth chart team guys. I mean, like all the way down to the practice squad. We might have the best wide receivers in the league. They did really well. Reggie Davis did well. Got the roster right here. Reggie Davis, Malik Turner had some big catches with the fumble, but he eventually made up for it. Aaron Parker, Reggie Davis, you know what I mean? They all did well. Simi had some really good blocks. That's pretty fun by him. Also, let me show some love too to Sean McKeon, number 84 tight end from Michigan. He was an undrafted guy last year. He had a pretty good showing. He was blocking like his life was on the line, and I think a lot of these guys should. I think that you can make the team being tight end 3. There's the first 2 guys, of course, but I think Sprinkle, Ralston, in my mind, the fullback from last year, undrafted guy, TCU, Shewu Aloni-Lua, he's in the running back room, but he's kind of fighting for this spot because fullbacks, tight ends, they end up being that auxiliary offense dude, but then they're like special team guys also. So that's just that. Then there's another little Eubanks that's just kind of running around out there. I don't think he's gonna make too much noise, but there's an opportunity for guys to make the team here. Artavius Lynn is another tight end. As I look at my cheat sheet that I stole from the media tent, whatever. Yeah, man, there's room for tight ends to get some work out here. Sprinkle may not be around, but Sean McKeon made some tough catches at camp also. Then we see him in the game blocking his lights off. That may be how you made the team here, sir. Plus, if anything was to happen to Jarwin or Schultz, we would need a tight end because it seems like Brother Kellen wants to run a lot of 12 personnel, which is Good to go. Good to go, sir. Azur Kamara was fun to look at. Rondell Carter was good to look at. Swing tackle is still up in the air. Nseki, Brandon Knight, they haven't done anything to separate themselves from the other guys. I would love to see, can we see Connor Williams at tackle, please? I mean, I feel like we've been talking about this for years now. Like, we saw we saw movement. We saw Connor Williams play some center last night. Can we see Connor Williams play tackle? Just to see it in a game type setting, just to see if he can do it. We might be surprised. Because Isaac Alarcon, terrible. Brandon Knight was probably the best of all of them, but he was bad too. Ty Nseki was not very good at all, man. Whatever. All right, and the final course, 15 minutes into the video, I apologize, but Micah Parsons, right? Micah Parsons was clearly somebody that we saw running all over the field. We saw Micah Parsons
locking down.
Whoa. That's my own voice, my bad. We saw Micah Parsons running all over the field. We saw Micah Parsons making plays. We saw Micah Parsons, every time the ball was around him, he was around the football. Our suspicions were true, though. Right, because I'm gonna see if I can try to show this on film at some point. Our suspicions were true in terms of his mental processing. There was a couple times where Pittsburgh tried to do some weird misdirection type stuff, some option type stuff, and Micah kind of bit on it a little bit and got himself out of his position or whatnot. But that's kind of what we saw from Penn State, though, right? We saw that on the Penn State film. He's athletic enough to run around and chase anybody, and he did a bunch of that. But we just got to be careful with the processing game. But that's something that he can work on. That's something that him and Dan can put extra hours in and figure out. His coverage was solid and all this. Like Parsons didn't hurt you. Didn't hurt you yesterday. And besides Randy, besides D-Law, and I'll even say besides Donovan, because I've been discounting Donovan when I've been having this conversation. Donovan's really good. Probably like besides Donovan or whatever, and that's just because Donovan's like super polished. Micah might be your best defender on the team, and that's interesting. He could be your third best pass rusher, and he's just working his way within the linebacker ranks. So what I said earlier, I meant that. They looking for a reason to put Micah Parsons out there and leave him out there. They gonna, like, if Jalen Smith played all the way to week 7, then his fingernail fell off and he had to miss a week, and Parsons came in 1 week, they're gonna say, hey, we're gonna start Parsons for the rest of the year because they want to keep continuity. That's what they waiting to do with Micah Parsons, and that's real talk. All right, with that being said, man, I appreciate y'all for coming through, man. This has been my recap of the first preseason. The stream last night was successful. We're gonna be doing watch alongs all year. Y'all come chill with your boy. We had fun. We had some good fun last night. The phones was open. We had some jokes and all that. It was a good time. So we're gonna do this all up until the regular season, man. Also, shouts out to Manscaped. They held down the stream yesterday. They're gonna hold down all our streams till this thing is over with. So shouts out to them, man. Get 20% off using promo code Voch. You understand? Appreciate y'all. And yeah, man, I'm gonna see if I can find some film to put together later on and show y'all what I saw yesterday. All right, y'all hold down for the Doski Wolski Peace Whiskey, man. Till next time. Peace.